Welcome everyone to this live webinar. I am joined today by the lovely Amy Wees and Steven Selikoff. Hi, Steven and Amy. Welcome to the webinar. How are you guys doing today?
Hello.
We're doing great.
Awesome. Okay, so for everyone watching, we have a contest for you guys today. So we're going to be talking about negotiation with Chinese suppliers. That's our topic for today. And Amy and Steven are, the experts and pros when it comes to sourcing from China. So we've got a contest for you guys. So what you need to do is tell us in the comments below, anytime during the webinar, what is the one word that will help you get lower prices from your supplier? One word. It's just one word. Okay. And Steven is going to reveal the answer at the end of the webinar. And the first person to get the right answer is going to get a 30% discount on a ticket to the Global Sources Summit, which is an e-commerce conference held in Hong Kong in October. Okay.
Let me ask you a question. If nobody has the correct answer, does everybody get the 30% discount?
Well, it depends on you. I mean, you're a speaker at the conference, Steven. Do you want to, get that out of your pocket?
It's not going to come out of my pocket, but I think we're beginning negotiations right now.
Wow. Okay. I was your victim.
Not victim, partner. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start first of all with you, Amy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and, how did you discover Amazon and how did you start selling your own private label?
Well, I discovered Amazon in 2007, and I was in the military at the time. I was in the United States Air Force, and I was in college full time, and I had a lot of textbooks. And I discovered this little button on Amazon where I used to like to buy books. Back then, that was a really popular thing to buy on Amazon, books and media. And I noticed this little button on Amazon that said, sell yours. So I started selling my textbooks on there. And then after that, I was kind of hooked. I was like, oh, wow, I can sell my textbooks. I wonder what else I could sell. So I started selling things merchant fulfilled all over my house. So I would sell, CDs that I wasn't using anymore, media, whatever, and then I started selling on eBay just for fun, to diversify my channels a little bit. And this was just a hobby. While I was in the military, while I was in college, it was just a hobby of mine. And back then, Amazon was really different. It was FBA wasn't a thing yet, and it was just kind of different. So I eventually got stationed in Hawaii, and I stopped selling on Amazon during that time period because shipping from Hawaii would be quite expensive. So I said, okay, I'm going to take a break from it for a couple of years. And then we retired from the military and we moved to San Antonio, Texas. And I still worked for the Air Force and, had a great job, all of that. But I had a problem with the stinky cat litter box and I couldn't solve it. There was nothing on the market to solve it. So I said, I have this idea and I would really love to turn it into a product. So that kind of started my journey. And it wasn't really an Amazon journey so much as starting a brand and inventing a product that solved a problem for people. And so I started just sharing my journey. Since I was already familiar with Amazon, I knew that I could launch my product on Amazon. So that made my business planning pretty easy for the sales and distribution portion of it. And and so I started sharing my journey, and I started kind of gaining a following because people were like, "Oh, hey, this lady's kind of sharing her journey, and I'm on the same journey." And so we kind of that's how my little group Amazing at Home was born, and here we are a couple of years later, and I have 2 private label brands, and I've got 2 more on the way, and I have my partner, Steven Selikoff over here, who is joining me every year in China. So that's pretty awesome.
Awesome. Great. So Steven, what about yourself? How did you discover Amazon and private label?
So I go back. So let's start off with just dealing with China. I worked at Microsoft for 12 years, and I was business manager to two vice presidents, including worldwide retail sales and marketing, which runs a lot of divisions, including something called Xbox, all of our software that's sold in stores and so on. So retail was involved there, but more importantly, negotiating. So Microsoft helped train me at the beginning, starting off with China and India, actually, and then Japan, where they actually sent me in person to do some negotiating. And that was successful, and back to China and so on. But I also had my own businesses as well. And my first business where I sold anything on Amazon, I had started off selling something to retail. This was back in 2006. It's a weight loss product. And I knew that the end of the year was coming. People would want to buy weight loss products at the beginning of the new year. So in October of 2006, here in Seattle, I heard some news about Amazon just launching something new called FBA. So within a month of FBA being launched, I already signed up saying, yeah, this sounds good. Let's start this off. And probably if they went through all my records would be right there at the top when they first began, back when not only did you get fulfillment, but you also got a website, which was really cool. They don't do the free websites anymore or anything else. So I go all the way back, but then also to let you know, I had a pretty successful product. Amazon wanted to sell it themselves, so they brought me into Amazon Vendor. And of course, I still had successes with retail, so I strayed away from Amazon Seller Central for a while. And when I came back, everything was different. And that's how I found Amy, because she was full of wonderful information on something that I had stepped away for a few years as I focused more on retail. And of course, during that time, I'm still dealing with China, still dealing with my factories and using everything that I learned both in my own company and from Microsoft. And that's how I built my negotiation skills, which we'll be talking about and sharing when I'm in Hong Kong.
Exactly. That's fascinating. You have so much rich experience, sourcing from different countries and working with suppliers. Okay, so let's dive right into the topic for today, which is negotiation for suppliers. So Steven, first of all, tell us, is it common practice to negotiate with suppliers when sourcing from China? Is it expected?
Absolutely, it's expected, it's common, whether you're sourcing from China or any other place. But I also want to be clear, there's also haggling. And when you go to China, when you go to Hong Kong, there's going to be people selling T-shirts and tchotchkela and all sorts of souvenirs. That's haggling. That's different. Where someone says, what's the price? Oh, they're going to tell you, oh, it's 500 RMB, and you clutch your chest and you say, you're killing me here. No, I only want to pay 50. And they say, no, it's going to be 400. You say, no, it's going to be 75. And then you say, okay, I'm leaving. I turn around, I walk away. Come back for you. I make special price. That's haggling. It's a lot of fun. That's not the same as negotiating when you're negotiating for your business. Negotiating for your business, the goal is not just a low price, but you also want to build a relationship. In fact, that should be your number one goal, building that relationship, what the Chinese call guanxi, because then you're going to be talking about your price and a whole lot more. That's your business. The answer simply is yes. And if you do like the haggling, go get some T-shirts. You'll have a good time.
Yeah, I remember when I first moved to China in 2006, one of the first words that my colleagues taught me was 便宜点, which means make it cheaper. So they said, this is going to be very useful for you when you go shopping.
Yes.
Okay. So when we're sourcing from China, what is the right time to start negotiating? I mean, is it okay to ask for a lower price as soon as we start talking to a supplier, we get a couple of maybe samples? Is that the right price, or should we try to maybe wait until a bit longer when we are further down in the process?
So negotiating with China is a long dance. There's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of steps to go through. Takes a lot of patience. It's not just a few questions back and forth in an email. So because there's effort involved in it, I really advise people to narrow down their choices of suppliers first. So if you're sourcing online, Get your samples, look at the samples, compare them, make sure you've got someone who's offering the quality that you want, that's responsive, that's communicative, that's helpful. Look at all of those features first as you choose your suppliers, and then after you choose your suppliers, you begin the negotiation. Same thing at trade shows. Go from booth to booth to booth and choose who you want to take the next step with. And only then begin the negotiations. Because if you think about it as just a few questions back and forth and saying, no, I want a lower price, that's not going to get you anywhere. Choose your supplier, and then you begin the negotiations and you build it from there.
Okay. But when we're just starting out, how do people know what the right price of a product is? You talk to one supplier, they maybe say, okay, $10, but how does one know whether or not this is the right price, or they're overcharging, or, they should negotiate? What's the way to do that?
Yeah, I've got a friend that calls that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So let's say that I am negotiating for this wonderful little screen cleaner I was given today for your computer. Don't start with saying what is the right price for this. Instead, think about your business. What are people willing to pay for this? And there's lots of ways, even just walking up to strangers in the street and saying, how much would you pay for this? Once you know what people are going to pay for this, you want to set your target price. And your target price should be 1/7 of that. So you get a 7x multiplier. So now you know what your target price is. And on Amazon, it can be even more, so 1/10. Let's say that people look at this and they say, that's wonderful, that's great, I will pay $19.99. Now you know that your target price is $2. So for your business, for it to make sense, you have a target price that you're going to be able to sell this product at and make a profit and make a business out of it. If you then approach suppliers and they're saying, oh, we're going to sell that for $5 or $6 or $8, walk away. There are lots of great products out there. So you want to have a product that you're going to make money from. Otherwise, you're just going to get yourself headaches. You're going to worry about saturated markets and competitions and so on. So you want your target price. So it's not what is the price that is the right market price. The right market price is higher than what's right for your business. That's the wrong product anyway. So we go in with your target price, and just to be clear, when you start that negotiation, start lower than your target price. Always build up. You can't come down.
Okay, that's very interesting. So what happens when the supplier agrees to lower a price? Because is it possible that the supplier might reduce the quality, use an inferior material, for example, or make another adjustment in the product that would decrease the price but also decrease the quality? Because as they say in China, you get what you pay for. So is that
sometimes you get less than what you pay for. I've had factories lower the quality without lowering the price and without informing me either. So I had pillowcases that were 330 thread count that were actually being delivered at almost just above a 250 thread count and so on. In the middle of just about 6-7 months into selling them, suddenly the product changed. It's important, as I said earlier, with negotiation, that you're building a relationship. You want to have that relationship so that when you do need to have the price lowered, you can actually look at the components. You have enough of a conversation going with them that you say, hey, this price is too low, but what can we change? Can we change this? Can we change the printing on it? Can we change the number of little bristles on this? Can this be printed on differently? Can be digital printed instead of screen printed and so on? You want to have that conversation. So of course, it's something that is changed and may change the quality of the product, but it's not something that changes the user end experience. I've got a product that I tried bringing the price down, and we looked at every element we could. And eventually we looked at the handles. The handles are big and long and solid. And we actually created new molds, and now the handles are hollow. And by having hollow handles, it's a lot less cost. You don't want to be in a situation where the factory does it without your knowledge. You want that to be part of the conversation so the two of you can figure out ways to bring the price down. then going back to my own bad experiences, always have inspections done, third-party inspections done, and done by a real lab who can tell you that, yeah, these pillowcases are no longer 330 thread count.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, apart from price, are there other things that can be negotiated with a supplier?
Oh yeah, it's China. You can negotiate anything. If you want to have your name, change the name of the factory to my favorite character on Game of Thrones for the right price, they'll do that. I mean, I work with a factory whose English name is actually a character from a Disney movie. So who knows? But besides price, one of the big ones is terms. And I talk to people about this all the time. Right at the beginning, you need to be talking about terms. And then there's delivery dates, there was review times, and so on. But terms is the very big one. When are you going to talk about it if you don't talk about it at the same time you talk about price? So might as well bring it up.
Okay. So basically you're talking about price, payment terms, delivery time, all of these things at the same time, right? Before
Exactly.
Okay, you've shortlisted a supplier, you want to work with the supplier, and then you bring all of these things up that, hey, we like your product, we want to place an order, but here's what we want.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely. And
cool.
here's a little tip. When you talk to them, for example, when I talk to factories and I talk about terms, I'll tell them what I want my terms to be. I proactively get right involved. I know that a lot of people are very comfortable going right into saying, well, I'll pay 30% up front and 70% upon completion. And some factories are so used to that being talked about that they'll actually come forward and say, oh, the terms are 30% and 70% and so on. But no, the terms are whatever you and the factory agree upon. So you may agree upon something different. You may start off right away saying, okay, and I'm going to pay 20% up front. I'm going to pay 40% upon completion of inspection and 40% upon possession or on bill of lading. And you say it. You can even say at the beginning, I want to pay 20% up front, 40% upon inspection, 20% upon bill of lading, and 20% 30 days later. Ask for what you want. This is a negotiation. If they don't like it, they'll come back and they'll say something different. And of course, you want to talk it out. The other thing is there are future orders. Here's another tip. Never promise future orders as part of your negotiation. That's a big no-no. You don't want to promise saying, hey, give me a 20% discount now because next month I'm going to order 5 times this amount. They'll hold you to that. And when you're ready to pay your balance, they say, okay, well, where's the purchase order deposit for your next order? You say, wait, I said maybe. No, you said you will. And here's the email or whatever. So never promise something in the future, but you can talk about the future. And that's important for terms. So you can say on this order, this first order, it's going to be 20, 40, 40. And the next order, it's going to be 10, 40, 50. The next order is going to be 0 up front and 100% at the end. And this is what I do with my other factories. So I expect to be only no deposit on my third order. And my fourth and fifth order, we need to be talking about extending payments out 30 days. Again, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And there's a big space between no and yes. But at least you have that conversation going. And that makes a big difference.
Correct. So what if, an Amazon seller is just starting out and maybe they're not placing a very large order? It's maybe they're testing a product and they want to order only, let's say, 200 pieces, or they want to just do a small test order. Do they still have leverage to negotiate for price and payment terms, or should they wait until maybe they've, tested the product and validated the product and they want to scale production and go all out, with that product?
No, I suggest right at the very beginning. You might have first you start the conversation, and the more times you have the conversation, the more comfortable you're going to be. Not every negotiation is going to leave you feeling, oh, I feel like this was the best experience of my life. But to make this more comfortable, not only should you be doing it a lot, but you also need to understand what your goal is. And your goal is so that you become partners. You want your supplier to be a partner in your success. I start every negotiation being very clear. that when it comes to price, I want a price that's going to make my customer happy, that's going to make me happy, it's going to make you, the supplier, happy. Because if we're all happy, we're all making money, then we can work together to figure out how to make that happen. So we're working together is different than Western negotiations where you've got two people coming in saying somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. Chinese negotiation is how do we work together to get to this solution? And the solution is a price that they like, that I like, and that my customer likes. So going back to your question about the new seller, and they only want 200 units or 400 units. And the supplier says, okay, but the MOQ is 1,000 units. I don't have the money for that. And frankly, I don't know if the product is going to work. That's what's going through your head. Mm-hmm. But you might as well keep the discussion going. Understand why it is 1,000. Maybe that there's a minimum on the packaging. Printing on plastic is more expensive. It's done by an outsourced company or some of that. So maybe you can do your 400 with generic packaging. Maybe it's just because they want to weed out the serious buyers from the non-serious buyers. And again, I love giving out hints and tricks. Here is another tip for you when someone says the MOQ is 1,000 and you only want to order 400. Ask them, well, okay, so I only want 400. What's the surcharge? What's the surcharge per unit for ordering under the MOQ? And they'll say, well, your price per unit is $3, and the surcharge is going to be another $1 per unit because you're under MOQ. Okay, that's affordable. I can do that. Now, will that surcharge be refunded back to me on my next order when it's over the MOQ? And most times they'll say yes, because this way now it washes out for you. So you're not out of that extra money. They're sure that you're serious. You're already talking about what your plans are, which you want to do this. You're not promising them a future order in return for a discount, but you are letting them know you're serious enough to be talking about a future order and you want the surcharge to be refunded. And frankly, that discussion again and again has an unexpected result. Not that the surcharge is refunded, but rather oftentimes they drop the surcharge because they were just trying to get an understanding if you were serious or not.
Okay.
The Chinese suppliers are very smart. They've done this with you. They've done this with customer and customer before you. They know that customers want to test it out. They know that customers want to proof that it's selling. Customers want proof that the factory or the supplier can deliver what they're saying. So a small order is normal. And you don't have to be deceptive about it. You don't have to say, oh, I'm a purchasing agent for a giant corporation and I have to get approval. My boss says I can only get 400 and I can't pay this or that. Just have the conversation going on. They have to try it out. And if they're saying this is the MOQ, the next step to do is to talk about a surcharge and see what that surcharge is. And if it's a doable surcharge, can that surcharge be refunded? And you can be much happier with the way the conversation goes.
Okay, awesome. That was great advice. So you've worked in different countries, right? So is a negotiation process similar in India as well, say, for example, or other countries in Asia? Is it similar to what it is in China?
Japan, yes. Indian, Middle East, some of the toughest negotiators I've ever dealt with. So I'll be quite frank. My favorite is Brazil, because every time we had to negotiate in Brazil, there are parallels to China, but in Brazil it always occurred over drinks and dinner. I will tell you, when we have negotiations in China, when you get to the point of visiting your factory and so on, there is food involved as well. China does business over food. So you'll be, in fact, let me just give you a little heads up. When you do get to the point of visiting your factories, you're going to spend most of the morning just getting to know the factory and the owners and so on. Just lots of small talk. You're not going to go into the price right away. Then you're going to have a nice big meal and everyone gets to know each other. They're not doing this just out of the kindness of the heart. They're trying to gauge just how professional you are, what your experience is. They'll ask you little questions like, where do you sell? They're trying to get information out and assess their situation, but you can do the same for them. But yeah, there's a big meal, and then you may talk about other things. You may visit the factory, the floor of the factory. There's all sorts of things that we advise that you look for when you go to a factory visit. But then eventually, you will get to talking about prices. So negotiating with China is a much more traditional, old-fashioned type of negotiation. I love it. Of all countries, I prefer negotiating with Chinese more than anyone.
Okay, awesome. So what is the
But I do
negotiation
like the
process?
drinks. I do like the drinks in Brazil.
Okay. Do you have baijiu when you go with your Chinese suppliers for dinners and all? That's a really strong
Yeah,
alcohol.
at my age, not as much, but my goodness, I'll warn anyone who has never drank Chinese wine before. You're talking at like 99% proof, 45% alcohol, 55% alcohol. Like sake, it will hit you. So be cautious.
Exactly.
Don't negotiate after drinking. Celebrate the negotiations with a drink.
Okay, that's good advice. So what does the negotiation process look like online? It's understandable when you're face to face and you can kind of gauge the other person and get to know them. But how do you do that online when you don't have the opportunity to go visit the factory?
Yeah, that's really good because I'll tell you right now, meeting your suppliers at trade shows like in Hong Kong, going to the factories and meeting them, that is absolutely the best way of having effective negotiations. A lot of it's because you can see their face, you can read them, you can see body language. And during our talk in Hong Kong, I'll be talking about how to read body language when you negotiate with Chinese suppliers. So the best way to do that online is actually to download and install WeChat. And WeChat has a great video feature. So when you're ready to actually finalize everything out and then add it to your purchase agreement, do it on WeChat video. I don't see that done nearly enough. And that really makes things a lot easier. Again, you can see their face. You can see if they're looking down at a list to see what the prices are, or you can see if they're just kind of looking up off the side, trying to guess, are they really serious about their price, how much wiggle room they have. You can see if they're talking to other people. They may, pick up their phone and call someone else to come in. They may have a factory engineer come in and talk to them. All of this you can actually see on the video when you're on WeChat. So WeChat video is a wonderful tool for negotiating video face when you cannot do it in person.
Okay, awesome. That was great information. So Amy, you visit a lot of trade shows, and we'll talk a little bit about your Canton Fair Experience, which is a really exciting trip that you organize. But what kind of negotiation happens at trade shows?
Well, we talked about this in a previous interview where we talk about how during the Canton Fair Experience, we actually do kind of one-on-one what we call negotiation sessions at the Canton Fair. But that's not really negotiation, right? We're talking about the long dance. But there's information that you're going to want to get. As Steven mentioned, you want to vet your suppliers. You want to get several suppliers. You want to get out there and start talking to them, start finding out what your options are, what kind of products they produce. And then there are areas of negotiation that you're going to start to get a grasp for, such as, we have a book that we give our participants that they actually ask the right questions in order to get the right information. And those kind of questions are, tell me about your factory. What is the MOQ on this particular product? What is the price, right? Give me a price for one. And that's not the final price, right? That's not even part of the negotiation. Really, it's part of that dance, right? It's that initial communication. So you're finding out that MOQ, you're finding out the price, the base price there that they're giving you. And you're getting a good idea for the feel for the communication with that particular supplier. So what we encourage our participants to do is not worry about closing a deal. You know, when you go to Canton Fair, you're going to see, in any trade show really, you will see some big buyers closing deals. And at Canton, you really see, you know, you see like people from Walmart, like you see some $20,000 negotiations going on, not really negotiations, but, you know, deals being closed right at those little booth tables, right? So, you know, but a lot of people that haven't been to Canton before or haven't been to these trade shows, and we found this out from our participants, they really felt pressured, like, oh my gosh, you know, do I have to like make an order there? Like, how does that? And so we kind of relieved the pressure. We said, hey guys, all you're doing, you're going to go to Canton, you're going to go to the trade show with a validated list of product ideas that you're going to source for, right? And you're just going to get the basic information so that you can decide after you get back how to move forward, which suppliers to move forward with. And, you know, you might get a really great price that actually works for you at the trade show. So you might, you know, start establishing that rapport with that supplier, and they say, you know, okay, my MOQ is 500, and you say, okay, well, if I order 250, is there a surcharge for that? And they're like, okay. I found that question, asking that question, hey, if I order less, is there a surcharge? They often say, oh yeah, it's okay if you order less. So their MOQ isn't really their MOQ. And so that's why we teach our participants to ask all of these questions, because you're going to find out things, right? You're going to find what they're firm on and what they're not so firm on. You're going to get a really good feel for them, but they may give you a price at Canton or at your trade show that's really good, and you write it down. And that way, later on, when you come back and you start going back to that supplier and saying, hey, you know, can you send me a sample, you know, and you get going and they give you a different price, you can go, yeah, I actually had that at $2 a unit with this MOQ. You know, that's what I have written in my book here. So yeah, can we start there? You know, so that's where your negotiation is kind of starting. That's the start of the long dance. And it's also the start of your relationship building with your suppliers. So.
Okay, that's
Well,
awesome.
at that point in the trade show, and I've been on both sides. I've had products that have been very successful, been at trade shows across the US and so on. But particularly when talking with your suppliers, there may be things about your product that you don't want to share yet. So you don't have an NNN signed. So it begins there at the trade show, but it continues afterwards. Also at the trade show, a lot of the owners don't have confidence in their English. So they'll hire college students who will sit in the booth and smile and talk and speak English. All they know about the product is what they've been coached beforehand. So I told you we'll give you tricks and tips, and boy, you will love the tips we do in Hong Kong at the summit. But here is another tip. In China, kings negotiate with kings. You are the owner of your company. So there is absolutely no reason why you can't ask to talk to the owner of the factory, because that's the person you should be negotiating. That's the decision maker. And they will bring one of those college students over to have them sit next to them to translate if needed. But this is a very traditional country. Kings negotiate with kings.
Yeah, Steven surprised me. He met me in a booth because Steven and I actually do a product together for every Canton Fair because we try to do it along with our students. And he met me in a booth, and I had been talking to the salesperson. And of course I knew that, you know, this was the salesperson, but I didn't even think to ask for the boss. And Steven comes in and he's like, hey, great to meet you. Where's the boss? And you wouldn't believe the boss was sitting up against the wall, reading a newspaper, legs crossed, nice and comfy. And that boss suddenly became alert because another boss was asking for him. And, you wouldn't believe he called his attention.
Oh yeah. And then Henry and I started a relationship. I got to learn about his son, who's in Japan, who's not going to inherit the factory. That is how the dance begins. You get to know each other. He learns about me, I learn about him, and then we start talking about products and prices and so on. So really nice people. I like them. I like the factory. And that's always a big plus as well.
Definitely.
Fascinating. So before we move on, I just want to remind everyone who's watching, we have a contest going on. So what you need to do is tell us the one word that will help you get lower prices from your supplier. One word, it's just one word. And Steven's going to give out the answer to everyone at the end of the webinar. So you've got to stay until the end to find out what that one word is. But if you want to take a guess, type it in the comments below on Facebook and let us know what you think. Also, the winner will be given a 30% discount on a ticket to Global Sources Summit, where both Steven and Amy are coming to speak. So if you want to meet them in person, talk to them, then you have to be there at Global Sources Summit. This is a 3-day conference that will be held in Hong Kong in October from the 27th to the 29th. And it's held in conjunction with Global Sources trade shows. So the idea is you come to the conference, learn all about sourcing and selling, and at the same time, you can go down to the show floor and start sourcing products and meet with thousands of suppliers on the show floor. So
Excellent.
Give it a try. Let us know what is the one word that will help you get lower prices from your suppliers. Also, I have a couple more questions.
Something?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I'm not supposed to say the word. I promised I would not say the word, but I will say it's got a certain number of letters in it. If anyone can guess that number of letters, you can kind of get a clue to what that word is, but I'm not saying it.
Hint, hint. Yeah, okay. So, and we're also going to be taking questions from the audience. So I've got a couple more questions for Amy and Steven. And then if you have any questions for them, then you can type them in the comment section, and then I will read out the questions for them from there. Okay, another question for you, Amy. So can you give us a recent example where you negotiated the price or other aspects, and how did you do that? What did the process look like, and what was the overall impact on your bottom line, on profitability for your business?
Okay, yes. Oh my goodness, I have several, but I'm an inventor and I like to bring unique products to the market. So I'm not really in the Me Too market that much. And I had actually sewn a product myself and sent it to Amazon. I sent 20 of them. I sewed 20 of them, and I put them in a poly bag. I had a UPC for them, and I had a little product insert card. I just kind of made up some stuff. I was testing the market, right? I knew there was a need for this because it was a problem that I was trying to solve for myself. It was a fairly simple product. So I don't like to overthink things. I like to, the military used to say, keep it simple, stupid, KISS. So I like to do that as well. So I sewed 20 of these things and I sent them into Amazon, and they all sold, and they got really good reviews. And I was like, oh, okay, so I have something here, right? Well, I didn't want to keep sewing them. I am not like a seamstress. I'm not my thing, right? But I knew that this was one of the products on my validated product list that I took with me to Canton Fair. Now, if you've ever spent any time with me, I have serious squirrel syndrome. My brain is crazy. And at Canton, there's 60,000 booths of suppliers. So I have to have that list. I have to have that list ready because I'm like, squirrel. Oh my gosh, there are suppliers everywhere. And all this stuff is so cool. And I need a list of vetted stuff. So anyway, I started at Canton and I was looking for similar products, because when you invent something, right, you're looking for similar qualities in a product. You're not going to find that exact thing. It doesn't exist yet. So I found similar products that would work for it. And I wanted to go start talking to some of those suppliers. So my goal is always to get at least 3 suppliers. So I walk into their booths, I start talking, working through my Canton Fair workbook. I start working through, okay, what's the MOQ? What are my design options? Tell me about your factory, all of that kind of fun stuff. Well, I get to one supplier and he's kind of a big deal, right? He's like, oh yeah, I asked him, I said, one of our questions that we have you ask is, where is your primary market? Where are you exporting to? And you know, are you selling online? Are you selling this product yourself? That kind of thing. Well, this one was big in Walmart. And I was like, oh man, like he's used to really big orders. Like this is going to be, you know, and I just want to make a small order. I just want to like get this thing going, right? So I started talking with him, started establishing rapport, and I felt really good about this supplier just because of the communication. Even though he was a big Walmart guy, right? I was like, okay, you know, I think I can do this, you know. And we started talking. And this particular product, as we mentioned earlier, we want you to have a target price in mind. Okay, I was selling this product for $20 on Amazon. That means that for me, I aim for 10x on Amazon, not 7x. 7x is for retail because Amazon has a lot more fees and expenses. So I aim for 10x on Amazon. So my target price is $2, right? So, and as Steven mentioned, you want to go a little lower than your target price. And I said, okay, you know, what's your price on this and your MOQ on a product like this? And that's what I ask when I'm looking for a product like this. I want to get an idea. And he said it was like around $4.98 a unit. And I was like, oh, I was just joking around with him, you know, and I was like, ooh, that's steep. I was like, I sew it myself for $1. Like I can't pay a manufacturer more than I sew it for myself. I said, but I'm really tired of sewing. So can we work something out? And, you know, we're just establishing rapport. We're having fun. And he says, well, no, I can't do that. Well, what we teach our people in the Canton Fair Experience is there are many things that can be changed. There are many costs that are variable. So we teach you what costs are variable. So I knew that the materials, the processes, the printing, all of that is variable. So I started talking to him about variable costs. I knew that I wanted to get down to $1, right? I was trying to get to $2 and we were going, oh, you know, over $1. So he says, well, you know, I asked him, I said, is there anything we can change here? Like, I don't need all this stuff. I'm using this product for something else. And I'm not telling him what I'm using it for. Remember, we don't have an NNN yet. We're just talking about design options, right? And he says, well, this reflective bar on here, if you don't need that, that's like $3. And I said, oh, awesome. I don't need that. So can we take that off? And then I started talking to him. I said, okay, well, what about this? Can we just sew this? It was like a heat transfer kind of thing, like a heat seal. And he said, yeah, sewing would be a lot less expensive. It would take longer lead times, but would be less expensive. And so we were still at about, you know, a $2 thing. And I said, okay, well, what about materials? I don't need this thick material that you have. In fact, I would like something a little more lightweight, but still durable. And he looks over and he pulls another unit off the shelf and he's like, oh, I have this kind of material. Would this be better? And I was like, that's perfect. What can we do with that? And he said, well, I can make that for $1. So right then and there at Canton, I had a 20x multiplier just being able to establish that rapport. And now when I got back, I was so excited to work with him. And, you know, they say you never get samples. Well, let me tell you, Steven gets samples. The suppliers throw samples at him. They do. He didn't have a bag with him at Canton. He had a backpack and I had a roller bag. And he's giving me all these samples because I mean, they just take him so seriously, right? But I, you know, followed back up with him and I met this supplier the last day of the fair. I said, hey, can I stop by and pick up some samples from you? And we talked again and I brought a whole bunch of samples home and he gave them all to me for free. He didn't charge me for any of them. And so now we're talking on WeChat and we're sending, he signed an NNN after that. And now we're sending our designs back and forth and talking about it. And it's been a really good experience. So that is a great example of a negotiation that happened where I was able to get a 20x multiplier and I'm working to develop a unique product with a great supplier.
Wow.
And that is an example of building a relationship. And the negotiation is not coming in and fighting, but having a conversation. It was a long conversation and you came back on the last day of the fair. That conversation is what leads to lower prices, different lead times. In this case, you traded off lead times for price or terms and so on, because now you have that relationship. And the Chinese actually have a word for that business relationship, guanxi. That's what you're starting right there. That's Chinese negotiation. That's why I love it.
Yeah, and I really like how you worked with the supplier to identify different areas of, parts of the product where they could reduce the price. So it doesn't really reduce their profitability, because it's important for them to, have their profits as well. So I think that's really important too. Fascinating. Thanks a lot for that, Amy. So Steven, you're going to be speaking at Global Sources Summit about negotiations, and you're going to be sharing a lot of, the advanced strategies that you've used over the years to negotiate with suppliers. So what can Amazon and e-commerce sellers hope to learn and, learn from your talk at the summit?
Well, my goal is to have you leave after my talk with a whole menu of actionable items you can take that day, walking right downstairs and talking to suppliers right there, and being able to get lower prices, to be able to get better relationships, to be able to start getting comfortable talking about terms. And just like I'm talking here, as you see, I love giving out real tips and real hints of ways for things to work. And I'll use an example from the Canton Fair Experience. We had a couple who had an established factory, and after sitting down and shadowing me during some negotiations and so on, during the 2 days between phase 2 and 3, they went to their factory and they came back all excited because they just repeated some of the phrases that I had suggested they use, which we'll be talking about in HawkCon. But even with an established factory, they lowered the prices by 30%, and the factory was already working themselves on trying to lower an additional 10%. So these are the phrases, these are the hints and tricks. And for those people who are at the summit and not during our meeting now, they will get the one word, but we'll be talking about it at the end as well.
Okay, awesome, great. So you guys have a great trip that you organize every April and October to the Canton Fair. So Amy, do you want to talk a little bit about your trip and who is it for and what are the benefits of attending?
Sure. Well, what's different about our trip is that it's not just a trip. It's actually a full course. So it's a full course. And what we do that's a little different, we don't focus on Amazon. Now, we do focus on Amazon, but we don't focus on just Amazon. Our goal is to teach entrepreneurs how to bring unique products to the marketplace. So how to come up with a unique product idea, how to validate that that idea is a good idea, how to know that people will actually buy their product before they invest in it, and then how to scale their business into the 96% of retail that isn't just Amazon. So of course we encourage them to start on Amazon because it's a great place to instantly launch, no barriers to entry, all of that. But I don't know about everyone else if you have a unique product out there. But I know for me, when I brought my invention to market, retail seemed like a big mystery. And I wanted to figure it out because I saw the potential. I wrote my business plan and I saw that there are 50 million cat owners in the United States alone. And if I could just reach 1% of that market, I could be making some serious cash, right? So I was really working hard on trying to get into retail. And then I meet this Steven guy who's already got it figured out. And he's like, this is not that hard, Amy. You just need the right resources. And sure enough, it's not that hard. So it's exciting for us to be able to offer a course where we're teaching people not only, because it's not about, you guys know this. If you sell on Amazon, you know this. It's all about the product. If you have the right product that people are just raving fans over, those are the products that everybody's trying to source, right? Those are the products like, oh man, look at that. That one's selling so much. It's crazy, right? That's the goal, is to be first to market with that great product. So we're teaching you the same processes that big brands use to bring unique products to market, to validate them ahead of time, and then to scale them. So we're teaching you the logistics. We're teaching you, most importantly, the negotiation, so that you can get the right price for that product, so that you can properly, be profitable and scale your business. So we, of course, do a hands-on portion in China at the Canton Fair, because the Canton Fair is pretty awesome, right? But before you go to Canton, we try to prepare you. So we've got 2 months, a full 2-month long course. It starts in August and it starts again in February. So it's a 2-month long course, and it is 3 hours of webinars a week and 1 coaching session. And just, we bring in experts, not just, you get Amy and Steven, of course, but maybe we're boring you and, you need, that's impossible. I know that's impossible, but, but we bring in experts, industry experts, not people you see on YouTube, but actually people you see in Forbes magazine and, big retail experts, and we help you, and business experts and intellectual property experts. And, we help you to really build a brand or expand upon your current brand and make your business real. That's our goal for you. Our goal for you is to be able to do this full time, to be able to make this your livelihood, right? And a very good livelihood at that. So that's our goal for our course. It's to teach you A to Z, how to come up with a unique product, and then finally to join us in China so you can learn how to source that unique product. So, and then our China trip is a little bit different than other China trips too. So we prepare you for 2 months, right? But you meet us in China a few days early. And the reason you do that is because we do a product reveal. And that's where Steven and I reveal the product that we've been working on this whole time alongside of you. And we give you a review of the fire hose of information we've given you over the last 2 months. So we walk you through, oh yeah, guys, remember this? This is how we prototyped this. This is how we got to this. This is how we validated it. And then, this is how we got to this point right here. Here's our target price. Here's the suppliers we're going to be looking for at Canton. And we just kind of give them that review. And then the next day, we take you on a factory tour. So we're talking about negotiation here, right? Steven has been talking about negotiation and how it doesn't really happen. We want you to go to your factories. Well, that can be really scary for somebody who's never been to China before. And it can be super scary for somebody who has been to China. Like, a lot of people are nervous, I don't know how to leave the fair and go visit a factory of somebody who doesn't speak my language and all of that. So we take you on a factory tour as a group together, so you can learn how molds are made. You can learn what you should be looking for. You can learn what that long dance looks like. We go to lunch with the factory. We go and see their showrooms. We take you through the same steps and give you the confidence that you would need to go to your own factory and do those things yourself. So it's really cool. And then we hold your hand at the Canton Fair. And every night after the Canton Fair, we all stay at the same hotel and we have these amazing dinners. And everybody's invited to dinner. It's part of the course price. And we have dinners with experts. So we bring in experts, people that you're going to love asking questions to after the fair. Like, we have a Chinese attorney. It's important that you understand how to protect your supply chain, and we're preparing you for that. Remember, we're teaching you the same tactics that big brands use. So you come to dinner, you meet Chinese attorneys, you get to ask questions, and we're all just having a ball together because we've been working together for 2 months. So it's a lot of fun. And, we have shipping companies that we've vetted. We have inspection companies, all of these people that you've met before, but then you meet them in person in China and you get to ask them questions after a long day at the fair at dinner. So that's kind of how our trip works. And it's just been incredible. There are other trips to China. We do have competitors, and they seem to be having a great time too. I highly recommend you go to Canton. It's just a lot of fun, and it's just such a cool experience. But ours is a little different in that we're just really preparing you to have a business that is scalable and preparing you to be able to really, when you get to Canton, understand how to negotiate and understand how to communicate with suppliers and have that comfort level that you might not have otherwise.
Okay, awesome. That sounds very interesting.
I want to join. Can I come along?
Me too. Take me with you. Okay, so that was really fascinating. So I just want to remind everyone, you still have time. Let us know in the comments what is the one word that will help you get lower prices from your suppliers. And we'll take questions from the audience now, and then Stephen will reveal the answer at the end of the webinar. So I'm going to read out some of the questions. So somebody asks, what's the best way to have these conversations? I've been doing this over Alibaba Messenger, but expect that there are better ways when face-to-face is not possible. So I think, Stephen, you addressed this earlier, WeChat, and specifically WeChat video, that would be the best way to do it.
It is the best way. First of all, WeChat is absolutely ubiquitous in China. It is everywhere. It's used not just for communication, but also payments and so on. The other thing is, Alibaba's nice, but it's also a bicycle with training wheels. There are lots of suppliers and factories that are not on Alibaba. There are factories and suppliers you're going to be meeting at global sources that are not on Alibaba. So if you're sticking to Alibaba Messenger, you're taking a great wide variety of suppliers and you're saying, I'm only going to work with these. So WeChat is across the board. And by getting used to WeChat, you are then able to have conversations with suppliers that may not be on Alibaba. And that's a good thing. For people who are saying, well, I don't know if I can, do I keep a record of WeChat and so on like that? If you install WeChat on your computer, there are ways of archiving all of your chat conversations. So they're always there and they can be referenced. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Alibaba's a nice way to start. As I said, though, in many ways, it is a bicycle with training wheels. And certainly when you come out to Hong Kong to global sources, you're going to be meeting suppliers with exciting things that are not on Alibaba. And you certainly want to talk to them.
Exactly. I think, at the Global Sources fairs, one of the things that you'll find is that a lot of the products are very unique and innovative. So at the fairs, Global Sources tries to curate a lot of the products, and there are actually in-house teams that, communicate with suppliers on a regular basis and try to identify new and unique, innovative products that are on the market. So I think that's one difference that you'll find, between Global Sources and Canton Fair. Global Sources fairs are a bit smaller than Canton Fair, but you'll tend to find more, unique and creative products over there. Okay, so let's see. We've got another question. Can you address the different elements of a contract we should have with a supplier once you're ready to place an order?
All right, so I get to do a shameless plug here.
Go ahead.
One of the things that we give our participants is a book called the Canton Fair Workbook. It has a list of questions that you want to go over with suppliers when you meet them at the Canton Fair or at Global Sources. 2 pages of those. It also has sections for factory visits where there's 4 pages of things you want to look for in the factory, questions you want to ask, sections of the factories you want to review. And on the last page of that are all the questions that you want to make sure have been decided and discussed before you start entering into an agreement. So when you do a manufacturing agreement or a purchase order, these are the elements that need to be included, and there's a list there. So now I've said it's part of going to the Canton Fair Experience, but it's also available on Amazon for like 10, 11 bucks or something. It's really cheap. So you can get one yourself. Just look up my name, Steven Selikoff, Canton Fair Workbook, and you can get one there yourself. And it has the whole list. And each time you have a conversation with a supplier and you're trying to nail out all your details, just turn to that last page of the factory visit section. You've got one, fill it all out, you're done. Turn to the next one. Now you're getting another blank one waiting. When you have your next conversation, you can fill that out, you're done. And just make sure it's all typed out and put in a spreadsheet or in an email so that the agreement's written. By the way, the last line on that is when you do enter an agreement and you want their signature, remember in China, the company does not sign. The company has a stamp, a seal. So you expect that the company will always agree to things with a company seal, not with somebody just signing it. That's not enforceable.
Okay. So this question was asked by JJ Augustine, and he says, thank you. Okay, let me see
All right,
if there are
JJ. Hopefully I will see JJ in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Let me see. I don't see any more questions here.
So I saw one that, two of them. One, somebody had asked about an NNN, and another one had asked about or made a comment about how you dress when you meet with factories. And
Okay.
I've seen success coming from people who are dressed in just t-shirts and so on like that. But everything about you, everything that you do, everything that you say, how you sit, and of course how you dress, that does give a message. So if you want to establish credibility and build your own confidence, dress a little bit better. At the Canton Fair in Hong Kong, it's going to be very, very hot, so be aware of that. But how you dress does help establish credibility. For many, many years, just to give it an example, the BBC required their announcers to wear tuxedos, even though they were on radio. So as you dress, what you dress does impact the presentation.
So
I'm so glad I'm wearing a jacket today. What's that?
So what tips do you have for how people should dress?
Collar shirt for men. Does not have to be business casual, but I wouldn't wear a t-shirt that says I love Budweiser beer or I drank too much last night or anything like that. If it's something that's self-deprecating, that's not a good idea. If you come across and can still come across professionally wearing shorts, go ahead and do so. It is a traditional country, so be aware of it.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, let me just see if there are any more.
I say that because you and I are both friends with Chris, and you know that he loves wearing shorts, and he would definitely want to wear shorts.
Which Chris? There's so many Chris's.
Oh, I'm not going to say anything.
Yes, Chris Davey.
Yes, I'm not going to say anything. I didn't say
He's
it.
super cash.
He's bigger than I am. He can take me.
I have to
Hi, Chris.
tag Chris Davey now. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Amy, are you looking at the post as well, at the live video on Facebook? Do you see any questions or? Yeah, I don't.
Oh, well, Rahul mentioned that you should have a bilingual agreement. So, Steven, do we want to talk about the importance of the format of an NNN? Not necessarily the details because we're not legal experts, right? But
yeah, so an NNN is a agreement that in America, often people talk about an NDA. So let's just talk about an NDA, whether it's America, China, or whatever. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. That means that if I have one signed with the two of you and I talk about my new anti-gravity sneakers, you're not allowed to tell anyone about the anti-gravity sneakers. However, the moment I post them on Amazon, it becomes public knowledge. So go ahead and talk. You're no longer bound by the NDA because I've got them posted on Amazon. So an NDA is only effective up to that point that you're ready to sell something. So even in America, an NDA is really not what you want to do to protect yourself from the factory who's continuing to produce stuff while you're selling it on Amazon because the cat's out of the bag. In China, they have a more effective document called an NNN. It stands for non-disclosure. There's your NDA. Non-disclosure, non-compete, so that they're not going to compete against you and sell a product, and non-circumvent, which basic terms means their cousin down the street is not going to sell the product against you as well. There are certain aspects to any agreement, particularly if it's a Westerner and Chinese. If it's bilingual, you have to note which language will be the enforceable language. And traditionally, that should be Chinese. So if there's any dispute between the difference in interpretations or translation, it is the Chinese that's accepted. The name of the supplier should be the same as the name on their business license. I said, I have a factory that's named after a Disney character. That's not the factory name. That's just a friendly name for us. In fact, when you meet Joe and Peter and Cindy in China or in Hong Kong, that's not the name their parents gave them either. It's not the name on their national ID. You just probably won't be able to pronounce their name. The name of the factory is the factory name on their business license, on their registration, and on the paperwork, and what's registered to their seal. So you have to make sure it's written in Chinese in their name. Also, where is it going to, what's the jurisdiction? You have to write the jurisdiction in there as well. So because of all of this, we always advise to, you can certainly use a downloadable NNN for discussion and for reference, but we advise that you actually talk to an attorney before you actually have one drawn up and signed. And then we're going to bring this back full circle to what our discussion is about, which is negotiation. And the elements within the NNN are up for negotiation as well. It might be the elements of who it can or cannot be disclosed to, what the penalties are. Perhaps they think $100,000 too much. They only want to have 50,000. So of course, this also becomes negotiation. But that's an NNN. That's some of the elements that need to be filled out in an enforceable NNN. And you certainly do want it enforceable. They do take it seriously.
Yeah, we actually had a pretty strong NNN with the factory that we visited, Steven and I visited in our last trip, and they refused to sign it.
Oh.
They were like, yeah, this is way too firm and we're not going to sign this. And granted, we had spent the whole day with them building a relationship. We didn't even talk about business until we got there at like 9:45 in the morning. And we stayed until 6 p.m. and we didn't even talk business until, 5 around there. In fact, we were running to the train station to try to get there on time. But yeah, we had built that relationship. So while a factory may have been offended if we had such a firm NNN before, we just told them, no problem at all. We can make those small changes and we'll get it back to you. And that's why we have a Chinese attorney. Because you want someone in China that understands the law. And when you have a Chinese attorney draw up your NNN, like I said, you're going to have factories that are going to be like, ooh, I'm not going to sign that. That's really, they take it very seriously. They know that it is a very serious document in China because it is written in their legal terms versus just I've seen a lot of people use like NDAs. And of course, the factory is happy to sign that because they know that there's, and I'm not saying that a factory would have that, would have a negative connotation against you for using an NDA. I'm just saying they're going to take an NNN in their legal language a lot more seriously than an NDA in English that they're signing something they don't even really understand, right? So that isn't really enforceable in their country.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so let's see if we have any answers to our questions. Our question was, what is the one word that will allow you to get lower prices from your supplier? So let me see, my colleague Sharanya has kindly...
The person who said negotiation, that's not the right answer, but I love it. I love that answer. Not correct, but that's a great answer.
Okay, let's see. So Jenny Oldham says wholesaler. Is that correct or even close?
She
So let's
corrected it. She actually corrected it. Yeah,
Yeah.
after that. So go ahead, Steven.
So she said wholesale, and that is the answer. But now I need to give them context around it and how you use it.
Okay, so that's the answer, wholesale.
She got the correct answer. I am impressed. I'm
Winner,
very, very.
We have a winner. Wow.
And I hope Jenny is still with us so that we can all tell her she did a great job.
Yeah.
So let's explain about this. So you'll see it again and again in China, hopefully less in Hong Kong, at global sources, but what happens a lot at the Canton Fair, people will walk in and the college student or even the owner or the sales rep will ask them, where do you sell? And they say, I sell on Amazon. And immediately they get a target on their back. Their prices are higher. Amy and I have seen people walk into booths where we're sitting there negotiating prices. Someone says, they come in and they, where are you selling? I sell on Amazon. And they get a price 3 times higher. It's incredible. It happens a lot. It's unfortunate. But since the audience we're talking to are Amazon sellers, be aware that there is a hierarchy of sales. So the person who sells to a customer, that is a retailer. That's the legal term. That's the SEC term. You are a retailer. You sell to customers. And it's traditional that you double your price between what you pay for it and what you charge customers, whether it's in a store or theoretically on Amazon. We know on Amazon, they're better. There are stronger price pressures and drivers for lowering your price. That's unfortunate. That's a retailer. Below that is a wholesaler. The wholesaler sells to the retailer, and the retailer sells to the customer. There are also distributors. The distributors can sell to the retailer, and the retailer sells to the customer. Where do the distributors buy their products? From the wholesaler. So the wholesaler is at the bottom level of this pyramid, and they have the broadest audience, but the tightest price constraints because they have to come in at the lowest price of all. So when you're talking to a factory or a supplier and they ask you where you sell, if you sell, say you sell on Amazon, you are not only a retailer, but now they know that you can accept smaller margins than most retailers do. So they even put you up here. They know that they have all this space in between to kind of jack up the price a little bit. And lots of times they'll do that. So you're setting a target on your price or your back right away. So now that we know you're going to identify yourself as a wholesaler, they're going to start the discussion. They're going to say, oh, where do you sell? What's it like? What's happening? And this is a second trick to go along with that word wholesale. And that is step out your front door. Walk down the street, hop in your car, go to a gift store, go to a souvenir store, go to a convenience store, go to any store that might sell type of products that you're selling. And just walk up to the owner, to the manager and say, hey, I'm selling this. Would you carry it? Would you pay for it? Do you think your customers would want it? Maybe they'll say yes. Maybe they'll say no. You might actually get a retailer buying from you, which is wonderful. Who doesn't want another revenue stream? But you're going to learn all about the wholesale business just by their questions. So now you're prepared. When that supplier asks you, where do you sell? You can say, oh, I sell wholesale. Wholesale, I have a bunch of retailers. Some may sell online, some may sell in stores. You can be vague about that. But now you know you are wholesale. You may not have made the sale, but you certainly have the experience as a wholesaler talking to a retailer. You now live in this tier, and that's where you want your prices. So when someone just comes in and says Amazon, they are setting themselves up for higher prices. When someone comes in and says wholesale, and you can talk about it, they're setting themselves up for lower prices. So right there is the one word. Where are you selling? I sell wholesale. I wholesale to a number of people. You can be vague about it. That's perfectly okay. They'll accept that. But now they know that there is a price ceiling that is a lot lower than the price ceiling they can get away with from Amazon.